Welcome to Talking Straight. I'm Suresh Kochattil. Yesterday, Justice Kaul of the Supreme Court actually did not like something that what Law Minister Kiran Rijiju has said a few days ago in a television show. It was a kind of a conference where the Law Minister spoke about the frustrations of having to deal with judiciary, which was not accountable to itself, nor was accountable to anybody. The minister was referring to the huge amount of backlog of cases in the Supreme Court, High Courts and various other lower courts. At the same time, the judges in the Supreme Court took affront to this, saying that the Law Minister should not have made a statement in a public forum. Fine. What was he trying to convey? What was Mr. Kiran Rijiju trying to convey? He was trying to say that the collegium system of the Supreme Court was of no relevance. Exactly. Where in the law, where in the Constitution does it say that the Supreme Court judges will be appointed by a collegium of judges? These are the powers that the Supreme Court judges had usurped themselves. There was an NJAC, the National Judicial Appointments Commission, which is passed by Parliament, which is supreme according to the law. But the judges felt that the executive was trying to override them and hence struck it down. If you strike it down, fine, but you can ask the government to come up with an alternative law. They did not do that. Instead, they usurped the same thing and decided who will get promoted, who will get transferred, who will get demoted, who will, of course, not be a Supreme Court judge. Imagine every other part of the Indian bureaucracy does this. 3 people sitting in a room deciding who the next chief of army staff will be among the army people, not the government. This is the problem, that when the Parliament does a law, the Supreme Court can interpret it, say it's wrong. In many cases, the Parliament has struck down many laws. But that doesn't mean that you create your own law. The Supreme Court has no power to create its own law. It is the Parliament's job to do it. They can suggest it to the Parliament. But the collegium system has become a law unto itself. It has zero accountability. It is a closed club of you scratch my back and I will scratch yours club. And that is what the sad factor is all about. Because if you look at the number of delays that are happening in the Supreme Court, High Court and various other courts across the country, millions and millions of cases piled up. There is no sense of accountability that way to reduce the number of cases. True, there might be allegation that the number of judges are short, like what's happening right now, that the Law Minister and the government are sitting on the files of the appointment of judges. There are intelligence reports. There are other reports which actually stop from the government from appointing certain judges, even though they may have been recommended by the collegium. Under our Constitution, there are 3 separate arms: the legislature, the executive, and judiciary. All the 3 are supposed to act independently of each other. But in this case, the Supreme Court, that is the judiciary, has kind of overridden the powers of the executive, has overridden the powers of the Parliament, which is a kind of body that makes these laws, which has MPs who are accountable to the people every 5 years, unlike the judges of the Supreme Court, who are not accountable in anybody till they retire or are impeached. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to think seriously about what is wrong with the judicial system of our country. We may talk of the great United States of America, and look at there. There the appointments are all done by the executive. There is no collegium system there. But has the law in the US crashed? No, it is not. True, there are allegations that certain judges are appointed to the US Supreme Court with an ulterior motive by that government in office. So be it. But what is happening right now is the sense of entitlement that the judges of the Supreme Court have towards each other. They think that they can decide what is good for the country. I'm sorry, you cannot do that. That is to be left to the Parliament, the logic and the will of the Parliament and the people. Let us understand how the system works. Basically, 5 judges, who are the senior most judges in the Supreme Court, sit together in what is called a collegium, have a list of judges who have been recommended by various high courts, where again there is a similar collegium that exists, and some of them are actually picked on what basis, nobody knows. There is no transparency in the system. And this is what Kiran Rijiju had clearly mentioned, that there has to be a transparency. You have to say why a certain judge was selected and why a certain judge was not. When the Supreme Court is asking for accountability from everybody and anybody, how come they are not asking for accountability from themselves? That is the most important thing. The Supreme Court judges have to understand that they are not above the law. They are not some people who came down from the heaven to tell us what is wrong with us. The threat of contempt of court, so be it. Many people have faced it. But the judges need to realize that in every other organization, be it a private sector or a public sector, if you don't perform, if you fall behind the targets, you will get sacked, or at least you will get punished. But in our case, no matter how many cases pile up, the judges will take their summer vacation, the winter vacation, the Diwali vacation, the Dasara vacation, the Holi vacation, the Christmas vacation that will put a school kid to actually look at and say, wow, it really mirrors the school vacations. More than that, school kids get less vacation than the Supreme Court judges. True, there is load on them. There's no doubt about it. It is not just attending the courts and actually going through the entire rigmarole, but actually writing out this judgment, which take a lot of time. But imagine the litigants who have to work for 30, 40 years to get a judgment, and by the time they might even pass away. Is this what justice is all about? As they say, justice delayed is justice denied. The Supreme Court judges have to respect the will of the Parliament. The Parliament is supreme, the people of India are supreme, not a few judges sitting in a room called the Collegium and deciding who the judges will be. It's time to go back to the NJAC and bring it back. And there has to be accountability across all executive, judiciary and Parliament. Thank you for watching. Jai Hind.
Please subscribe to Nationalist Hub English channel for more interesting videos, and don't forget to like and share this video. Nationalist Hub, it's a news revolution.